Another piece of advice I can give is if you are doing it like I'm doing it with the transmission housing on, line up the holes here first before you go around. I went around this way first, and then I ended up getting scrunched up over there because I didn't realize that the stud over on this side was in one of the wrong holes on the gasket, because the gasket doesn't really sit in place. Some people advise using Honda Bond or RTV just to kind of stick it down in place on the corners, but other people say not to do that because over time it'll actually cause a leak. So I went ahead and didn't use it, and that's a problem I came up with right now. But once I kind of backtracked a few bolts and then started out on this stud in here, making sure it was lined up in one of the middle holes on the gasket, then I was able to do it correctly. So now it's all lined up, and I just have to compress the gasket. Next, I'm changing the O-ring that goes on the end of the dipstick. That's this part number right here. Little teeny guy. So in order to take off the oil cooler, you have to remove this sensor wire here. No matter how careful I was, the rubber was pretty brittle, and I ended up splitting it. I'll try to repair it or get a new one. You take off that bolt right there for the bracket, and then I already have that hose off in the back, and I have to take off this coolant hose right there. Okay, to disassemble the oil cooler, you take off this 17 mil. This comes right apart after. Here's one O-ring. That's that part number right there. And then the other O-ring is that part number. That's for this. Goes in the very top. There you go. Pretty simple. So oil up the O-rings, the new ones, put them in, and then you torque this to 36 foot-pounds. That's 17 mil. Clean up this mating surface because you're going to have to Honda Bond it, so you're going to want to get all the old stuff off, make it clean, same as you do for anything else that has a mating surface, both sides. So I couldn't find anywhere in the book where it says to put Honda Bond on this, any kind of liquid gasket, not on this part anyway, but when I took it off there was definitely some Honda Bond stuck there, and around there, going up to there, and a little bit right there. They didn't have it going all the way around, but I'm just going to make it go all the way around. Can't hurt, so I'll just do a very thin coat. So once you have your Honda Bond on thinly and you place it on there and put the bolts in, you're going to torque them down to 16 foot-pounds each. Now is a good time to torque this one to 36 foot-pounds unless you did it on the bench. I didn't have any luck doing it on the bench, so I got 36 here, and then you could do your dipstick with your new O-ring, which is 9 foot-pounds. Alright, so now it's timing belt time. Here's the part number for the timing belt adjuster. And let's see. This is the timing belt here. And there's the part number for that. Alright, so I just kind of started placing the timing belt there. Put the tensioner back on, new tensioner. I'll have to figure out the next step, but I know that right now I'm going to take out the spark plugs to release some pressure when you're making compression as you're turning the crank and making the pistons go up and down. So take out your spark plugs. Okay, so it wants everything top dead center now. Top dead center without seeing the marks. Your keyways facing straight up. You'll have these marks in line with each other on your front and rear cams for both intake and exhaust. So your intake ones are on the inside, your exhaust ones are on the outside, and there's a little mark there and a little mark there, and they want those in line on both of them. But then they want you to advance the rear exhaust, which is right here, half of a tooth past this mark. So advancing on this is clockwise. You always turn everything clockwise. So only a half a tooth past. Alright, so you have your intake mark in line with this tooth, which is right past this top dead center mark for the exhaust mark. So that's a half a tooth difference. So the way the tensioner is oriented is it grabs onto that little part there with this bottom angle bracket on it, and then the spring is oriented on this part, which is up top, right underneath the water pump. And so you put it around the crank first, then around here, and then you let it hang. And you take this part, slide it over the front exhaust, then the rear intake, then you try to keep it tight, tension through all here. You get it onto that, and now I wasn't able to get it onto the exhaust all the way, but I was able to get it partially on some of the teeth. So once I had it partially on, I put the crank pulley back on and just gave it a little turn, and it pulled it right on. And I believe my timing's actually good already. Oh wait, nope. So this looks a little bit off right there. It looks like the exhaust side is not advanced. It's okay, set back, and the intake side is advanced. So I need to maybe take it off and fix that. We'll see what happens if I turn it a little bit, because this one's still that half a tooth off, but I'm pretty close. So let me try to figure this out, and I'll be right back. Okay, so in order to get the slack out of the belt, you keep turning the crank clockwise, and the slack will first come out of this lower part, then here, then here, then here, then here, and you're going to keep doing this until you come back to top dead center. At that point, your slack should be here, and this tensioner pulley bolt, you're going to want that loose while you're doing it. And since all the slack is taken out of the rest of it, this tensioner should take care of all the slack there. So you just let go, should be good, and tighten it up to 31 foot-pounds. Your tensioner bolt, 31 foot-pounds. So I put the covers on temporarily just to check my timing marks. So with this one, you can see the timing marks right there. When I put this cover on, you can't really see them unless you peek down there. So I was worried that maybe the timings was off. So I tried adjusting the cam gears a little bit this direction and that direction, and I made it so that you could see them, but they were at such a weird angle. So I think what you want to do is disregard the book on how it says to make sure it's in line with this cover. And what you want to do is just, if you were to draw an imaginary line, or even hold a straight edge from this bolt to that cam gear bolt, and then you would have your marks straight in line with the middle of those, and that means your timing's good. Then you would have this bolt loose, and you keep turning the crank clockwise. I may have already recorded this, I'm not sure, but you turn this you turn this crank clockwise, and it'll start pulling slack out of this one, then this one, this one, this one, this one, until your slack is here. And then what the tensioner is supposed to do is pull this slack out. Now I'm a little concerned because this belt is tighter. This one's really tight. These are like guitar strings, but this one has a little bit of play. So maybe it's supposed to be like that. I'm gonna have faith that the tensioner pulley is brand new and doing what it's supposed to do, and that's okay. I did tighten it in place already, but I could loosen this up and pull it over a little bit and make it a little bit tight, but maybe that would be too tight and then it causes premature wear. I'm not sure, so I'm gonna leave it like this. It's certainly not loose enough to jump any teeth, and it's tighter than it was than the old one, so I think it's good. This is the upgraded timing belt cover for the mid cover right there. I'll link the part number to that. I'd like to give a big thanks and shout out to Jeff Kuda for sending me this timing belt plate right here. It keeps the timing belt from, if the crank pulley ever is to fail, the harmonic balancer inside, it can be sucked into the timing belt cover, eat away through your timing belt. So this gets bolted right there, and that way it would have to eat through the metal first. So you'd hear a noise for sure while it's doing it, but it will prevent it from happening. So it's just extra peace of mind. Anyway, thanks again. Thank you for sending it to me. Much appreciated. It just replaces the two normal bolts there with these longer Allen keys. Okay, so I'm back at the shop again. Timing's all set. I was a little confused because cylinder number 1, when I looked at it in the firing order, it appeared as though the lobes were not facing upwards like in the manual. Right now it's set for top dead center, cylinder number 4. And I'll show you over on cylinder number 4, if I can get in here, the lobes are pointing upwards on top dead center for cylinder number 4. However, on cylinder number 1, they were not. So I was freaking out, thinking I put the cams in wrong or something, and I was so sure that I didn't, and I didn't. I checked with another guy who happens to be at the same stage of building his NSX motor right now across the country, and he went and checked his, and he said that I have good attention to detail because he didn't even notice, but apparently this is just how they are. There's some kind of overlap in the timing. But rest assured, if you do notice what I noticed, don't freak out. It'll look like the lobes on cylinder number 3 are ready to fire when you're on top dead center for cylinder number 1. And I know that doesn't make any sense, and I still can't really wrap my head around it, but it is the way it is on the NSX, so there must be some kind of weird thing with timing for this side. That goes for all of the cylinders on this rear bank. When you set cylinders 1, 2, and 3 to top dead center, they all don't appear to be ready to fire, which is strange. But yet 4, 5, and 6 do. And my timing is correct. I went over everything. And yeah, I don't know why it's like that, but it is. And I was scared to cinch everything up because I thought maybe I'd be smashing pistons into valves and throwing rods to the side of the block and just catastrophic failure. So until I double checked and triple checked and called people and found out that this is the way it's supposed to be. So you can rest assured for that. So now I'm going to do the valve adjustment. I'm going to film it, but I might not show it up on might not put it on YouTube just for the sake of time. I'll link somebody else's video because there's other people that have already done this. But just to be a quick thing here, you set it for top cylinder number 1. The firing order is 1, 4, 2, 5, 3, 6. And so that's the firing order. And the intake valve adjustments, you put your shims, you don't do it on, like other motors, you'll do it in between this rocker arm and the actual valve spring retainer here. What you do on this motor is you do the shims right in between the lobes and the rocker arm. So you do it in between there for your clearances. The intake is a minimum of 6 thousandths and a maximum of 7 thousandths, and the exhaust is a minimum of 7 thousandths and a maximum of 8 thousandths. I bought this tool here from Amazon. It was 12 bucks. It was shipped here the next day. It makes it a lot easier. The Honda tool, I think, it might even be discontinued, I don't know, but that's like 100 bucks. And this just makes it a lot easier than trying to use a socket and a flathead screwdriver. So I highly recommend this $12 tool from Amazon Prime. Okay, I'll just link somebody else's video in the description for the valve adjustment.